Young Turks is back with a brand new season of Voices from the Valley, fulfilling our annual promise of giving you unparalleled access to the heart of the startup and tech capital of the world. Last year, we captured the early whir of the generative AI engine, and this year we return to record its roar. In this episode, we bring you two voices, one which speaks for the world of APIs and the other that pioneered India's SaaS exports to the Silicon Valley. Ask anyone about APIs and one is sure to hear about Abhinav Asthana and his Postman. What started off as a side project in 2012 has now grown to be an industry-standard API platform used by over 30 million developers and 500,000 organizations, including 98% of the Fortune 500 enterprises. At $5.6 billion, Postman is valued higher than Freshworks and holds the crown for being India's most valued SaaS unicorn. It was Nexus Venture Partners, true to its belief of backing breakout enterprise software companies, that made one of the earliest institutional investments in Postman as early as 2016, led by the VC firm's managing director, Jishnu Bhattacharjee, whose investing expertise lies in data, AI, SaaS and DevOps. Founded in 2006, Nexus Venture Partners has backed over 75 enterprises, tech startups, over 150 startups, cumulatively with assets under management of $2.6 billion. Zomato, OLX, Unacademy, Snapdeal, Ultrahuman and Zepto are some of the top consumer startups to have emerged from the Nexus stable. Abhinav, let me start by talking to you about it. I mean, you know, as I pointed out, first generation entrepreneur, didn't have any business or entrepreneurial background, and you started in high school. What was that about?
Yeah, well, I've been, as you said, side hustling for a while. I think Postman is kind of my only gig, just for viewers. But I've been fascinated with computers, from a very early age. My dad bought me my first computer, was hooked up to the internet, and I just loved programming. I loved building stuff, and then it turned into building products. And then it turned into building companies, and eventually, like this company,
which was also a side hustle in 2012.
Yes. So I was experimenting, with different ways in which, developers could be more productive, and this one turned out to be a side project that worked.
But when you started, did you ever think that you would be at a point where you would become the most valued SaaS unicorn, which is what you are today?
I don't think we were ever chasing, that status or that valuation. I think we always felt like that was a reflection of, the potential of the business and the work that we have put in.
So what was the mission statement? Was there like a napkin where the mission statement was written out as far as Postman was concerned?
Yeah, Postman's mission is to, create 100 million connected developers and bring the vision of an API-first world to life. That came in after, when we talked to developers, we talked to customers, and we saw how big the potential of APIs is for them, and we kind of were compelled to have that vision statement. So it was a push and a pull, and that's where we are.
Well, speaking of the push and pull, Jishnu, you've seen many cycles, and at this point in time, same time last year when we spoke, you were excited about what was happening as far as AI is concerned. But what a breakout it has been. I mean, 2023 and now 2024, it's as if you can't stop talking about this story. And we talked about the hype cycle, but it does start to feel like it does have real legs now.
It does. Last time we mentioned that, AI is being talked about as this inflection point which is changing everything. Either a company will be an AI company, or a company will be using AI products or AI services. I think that this is the first time when people have sensed what AI is. It's not, how a trend line will look like 2 years after. It's like a live, almost like a live person with whom I can have a conversation. So clearly it had an impact. I think what is yet not proven out is at what scale the use cases and applications will be using AI beyond innovation and experimental budget. There are certain areas, maybe on content production, on software development, where the ROI is getting to some extent proven out. But there are a lot of other cases where I would say it's still a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of lean forward. But sustainable use cases are yet to come. and this year and the next will probably be quite defining.
I would imagine so. And Abhinav, how are you seeing this? Because, as we heard there from Jishnu, a lot of companies at this point in time running pilots, some are actually now moving beyond the pilot stage. But the other aspect is also that, you're now being judged from an earnings and evaluation perspective on whether you have an AI strategy or not, even if, so how are you reading into these developments, and what does it mean for Postman specifically?
Yeah, we are pretty much kind of in the middle of it.
In the middle of it, yeah.
I think what we are seeing from our end is that there's a lot of excitement, as Jishnu said, on what is the potential of AI. I think what everyone is realizing is that the first use case that came out was actually code completion, and that's where developers are seeing real value. Beyond that, I think there's a lot of experimentation that's kind of going on. All of that depends on your data and your APIs and what access to data you have through APIs. What is available to you. So the AI that you create is as good as the data that you have, and the experiences are dependent on APIs. So that's kind of what we are seeing, and every company is trying to bring this puzzle together. At our conference, we hosted folks from OpenAI, NVIDIA, and Notion, and they talked about that basically at this point people are going from building a prototype in production to the next one, and we are learning as things go along. I think it's kind of in some ways co-creating with the community at large, right? The community is showing a lot of enthusiasm for these demos, and people are responding to it, like the demand of these demos. I think there are some use cases that will stick, but I think over the next couple of years, as the technology evolves, we'll see maybe very dramatically different things.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that, I think this aspect that you talked about, where the community is actually working together, this sense of collaboration. I don't know whether you think that it's working differently in comparison to what we perhaps even saw with the last sort of big transition, the cloud shift. Are you seeing this as being different, the kind of collaborative, synergistic moves that we're seeing today?
It's amazing. I would say it has gotten accelerated, and I would like to amplify one point that Abhinav said. Like, if you look at today how AI is being used, there are two aspects to it. How good are the AI models?
Yeah.
But equally important is how seamless is the access to AI along with the data on which the AI is supposed to run, and that's where API comes in. Like, we internally at Postman say that for every AI there is an API. Today we don't know of AI getting consumed without API.
Yeah.
Now if you put that thing together, what it translates, it just makes it seamless to collaborate on AI using tools like API. And the open source community has also taken over very significantly in terms of AI innovation. Previously it came from, I would say, generative AI was shown to the world by OpenAI, but things have come along a long way, probably even more so by the open source community, and which is essentially collaboration, community coming together and building amazing things.
Yeah, and I remember you said that APIs are the hands and legs that drive the thinking, right? So explain that to us.
Yeah. I think if you see the explosion of AI-driven applications that was driven by the OpenAI API being available very early on, what you had to do before, even if you see what the cloud enabled was, you didn't have to buy infrastructure anymore. You could just go start up like an AWS account, and APIs provided by these LLM providers like OpenAI have accelerated it. You can just have an app, plug in an API call, and now you're building with AI. So that has led to a massive proliferation of AI technologies. And I think there is the other end of AI as well. Like if you look at code completion or text completion, those things only go a certain way. But for the AI to be able to act on certain things, for example, we were talking about flights before. If you had to book a flight, right? Like the booking of the flight has to be through an API call. If you're making payments, it has to be through an API call. So LLMs of the future will need to understand what options they have available to take actions on behalf of consumers. And that's what I mean by, AI, APIs being the hands and legs of AI.
Since we're talking about the importance of open source, and you were talking about the acceleration that's been provided as well, let's talk about the fact that you've been able to create the largest public API hub. What was the thought behind that?
Yeah, we saw that developers really just want fantastic APIs fast, and they were doing it through Postman. What we could do was bring publishers to developers. We saw a lot of publishers who were struggling with building great developer experiences. And on one end, they were using Postman in a little bit hacky way, and then consumers really wanted access to these APIs. So we were like, why don't we just put them together? And we were just fascinated with the response. We had providers like Salesforce, Stripe, Meta, all came on board, and we just kind of tapped into this disconnect that existed. So we're growing by leaps and bounds. We have the best brands on the platform today, and it's still kind of very much on its early stages. We're bringing like AI APIs on the platform. We are bringing like traditional sectors like healthcare,
Right.
financial services. We have MasterCard on the platform now. We have telecom companies. So
Yeah.
and in India we are seeing a huge bunch of like fundamental infrastructure APIs come on the platform. So really our mission is always to kind of accelerate the work that developers need to do, and the public network is kind of in service of that.
Well, just outside of AI, what else is looking exciting? Because it looks like, everything at this point in time is AI or AI-led or AI-driven. But outside of that, from your portfolio perspective, as well as the bets that you're making, what else is looking interesting? Any new disconnects that startups are trying to sort of leverage on?
Yeah, absolutely. See, what happens is that, this kind of thing. So in 16 years I'm investing, there was cloud wave,
Yes.
then came microservices, APIs, AI. These inflection points actually give rise to a lot of innovation. Now what is happening is that if you look at AI has taken center stage in mindshare and also has taken center stage in innovation, but around that a lot of things are happening, which means that to make AI work, first of all data is huge, so there are a lot of innovation happening around data processing, data cleaning. Ultimately this AI and what we talked about has to work and do something, so which means action. How do you drive action from this AI? So there is a lot of workflows that needs to be rethought about. Previously people would think that, okay, develop an application.
Yeah.
Now people say that, you don't need that middleman called application. You just need the action to be done. Because I don't need a dashboard. I need something to be done. Can AI do that? So involving AI, a lot of things are going on. Now, to your point, see every facet of the economy, and here we are talking broadly, not just like, if you just look at India, the digitization pace in India is just like all the things we talk about, right? Like, whether it is UPI, whether it is ONDC, everything is actually, leading to a lot of innovation. APIs are at the center. But one point I would say is that, there are a lot of things which will continue to happen which doesn't involve AI. AI by definition are things which are probabilistic or stochastic, but many of the things that we do are as we have been doing is deterministic. So it will always be a coexistence. I mean, sometimes, in today's world, if you open up the newspaper or turn on the TV, it seems that, AI is everything. At the end of the day, AI is an enabler. That doesn't take away the need for the core innovations and infrastructure that
We're speaking about innovations. What's looking good at this point in time? You closed that big $700 million fund last year. So where are you deploying all of the capital?
So as we do, 50% of our deployment happens in what we call Digital India, which is digitization of the country, and 50% is in global software. Like Postmans of the world. We need more Postmans.
Yes.
We are fortunate to be working with Abhinav from day one.
Quite literally from day one, right?
Actually, yes. Like, as he said, he was building something first to help himself. Then he figured out that, like him, there are a lot of developers. And then he said, oh, I built a product that user loves. Let me build a company. And luckily at that time, we could partner with him.
Exactly. And this takes me back to the conversation that I had with Shantanu Narayan just 24 hours ago, where he said exactly that. He said, if a startup says, I have a problem, I'm going to find a way to fix it, that is probably the best business that you should then chase after. And it seems like that's exactly what you did.
I mean, I had built a lot of failed products, so I know what that looks like. But Postman was, one of those things where, you just know what, the person needs because the person is you. I think for me, just not being egoistic about like, hey, what I've built is good enough. I think you kind of have to maintain that desire to build a better version of that product while also being kind of, satisfied that, okay, this is good enough so you can ship. If you can get that balance right, you can, be your best customer. and build a company around it. So we had 500,000 users, before we started, and that was a big kind of push as well.
And on that note, actually going back, because you were asking about innovations, we are seeing actually massive innovation in consumers. Like, we all know of Zepto, or at least people will get to know more about Zepto, which is almost like, changing the commerce stack of the country. Similarly, if you look at in areas in financial services, in healthcare delivery, I think in every facet we are seeing innovation. If you look at on the software side, just to going back to the, every layer of the stack, infrastructure, platform, tooling that developer needs to build software or now deliver actions with AI. I think everything there will be opportunities to rethink. And I think AI inflection point is real here. So, if what I mean is that innovations are not necessarily all AI. That they are building intelligent frameworks or whatnot. But because of that, people's mind and eyes have gotten opened up on what all other things are possible.
Right.
And we will probably see this across industries.
2024, do you believe we're going to see, the return of exits, the return of IPOs? Is that
so that's a very good question. In our opinion, 24 is looking looking brighter. Things are moving, seems in the right direction. Now the interesting part is, if you look at last 2.5 years, probably US IPO market was frozen.
Yeah.
But India was booming. We have taken Delivery Public in 23,
Yeah.
India Shelter Public, Delivery Public in 22, India Shelter Public in 23. I think this year there has been some IPOs in US also. Though
Rubrik.
a select Rubrik went public, and so it is not yet clear when the floodgate will open. But I think it will be determined by few marquee IPOs happening over the next 6 to 12 months, and depending on how they perform, that will kind of set the stage. But looks like things are going in the right direction if I compare with 23.
Is that the direction you're headed in at some point?
I think our focus is always, building the best product for our customers. And then, as I said, chasing the unicorn status was never the goal.
Yeah.
And chasing an IPO is not the goal.
Yeah.
I think, those things happen when you build a fundamentally strong business. I think we have been a fundamentally strong business. So,
I mean, he of course, he's being modest.
He's measured, yes.
He's measured. See, I mean, today we are serving 30 million plus developers, which is probably maybe only other comparable scale company is GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft. We are steadfast about solving, being as big companies like Amazon, Bezos has already said, customer centric. For us, it's user centric, and we'll keep on doing and delivering what it needs. And to that point, I would say IPO will also be a one kind
Milestone
of milestone in the
journey.
whole journey.
Yeah. So not chasing valuations, not chasing an IPO, but chasing customers. So what's the story looking like on that front?
I think it's fantastic.
What's the headroom for growth, considering the opportunities that you just spoke of?
Yeah, every year we feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah.
We are tapping new markets. We are seeing, industries being even more excited about, APIs. I think we were talking about this before, but, in the age of AI, everything is an API. And now, we are seeing traditional sectors, telecom, healthcare, all modernizing. They are using Postman, and they're coming to the Postman enterprise platform. We have customers in more than 100 countries. We have, 30 million, 35 million developers now on the platform, and they're growing like crazy. So we have, so much potential just with the existing product. We are in the market for acquisitions. We are acquiring companies. We have acquired, Akita Software last year. We acquired Orbit, a couple of months ago. We see it's a great market for, bringing new products on the platform.
So is that what the acquisitions will result in, is to fit those gaps?
Yeah. I think we look at, what the customer wants, and is there a differentiated piece of technology that we can bring for our customers. So we are, acquiring companies. We are, blasting forward with our sales team, with our marketing efforts. So, for us, really, there's not been any change in business strategy as such.
Right.
We've just which is growing.
But for someone like you running Postman here from the US, while you of course continue to have a sizable presence in India on the engineering side, what has this experience been like? And for other SaaS companies who are looking at this point in time or are toying with the idea of how they should go to market, I mean, what's the big lesson that you've learned that you would like to share with them?
I think you need to have a very strong founding team, because if you have to build a company, which is a category leading company, you would want to move here. And that also requires a lot of support with your co-founders or your management team back there. I think our experience is really just building, two companies at the same time, but they still have to work together. So hiring well, building the executive team, building a stellar management team, all these things, and kind of keeping pace with the changes as the company really grows, it's very hard. And having the support of investors, who know folks, in the valley, like Nexus was a big support for us. I got a lot of connections, I got a lot of advice. I think that's, of course, very kind of useful. I think being very measured with, if you are in India and then you come to the US, your costs will explode, and sometimes you're not measured, which kind of puts you in a bad fundraising cycle. So I would, we were very measured and methodical about where we need to invest in, what kind of talent we need to bring in. And finally, just showing up in front of, I would show up in the customer's office. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you trying to do with Postman? So if you're just, back in India and you're thinking you're setting up a US company, it's not going to happen.
You will have to be here, to make it happen. How, are you starting to see much more momentum now? One gets to hear that anecdotally, that there is a lot of interest, enthusiasm, and now actually sort of this move happening of SaaS companies continuing to set up base here, with Indian roots continuing to set up base here in the US. What's the prognosis on that?
That is correct, and we feel good that we catalyzed this market back in 2007, and since then we have had IPOs and we have companies who moved here. There are quite a few companies who are in the way. I would say the ecosystem is still, there is a lot of activity, but it's still maturing, right? And we are learning as an ecosystem quite a bit. When back in 2007, 2008, when entrepreneurs would come in, probably they would find things a little bit more involved and difficult. Now at least, it's also how the ecosystem, in all ecosystems, assign some credibility. Now I think because of the success stories, startups, software startups coming out of India addressing the global market has earned some credibility. So that is making it easier. Thankfully, Valley is filled with a lot of really great Indian founders and Indian ecosystem, and also non-Indians. Valley is known to help.
The pay-it-forward culture, I have to say, is very,
amazing.
very strong.
That's what probably everybody will say. That's the core of Silicon Valley. Why Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley. So actually things are becoming easier. It's just what he said is super important. The mindset of the team has to be there, that from very soon as they start, that we are making a global company. We have to make some efforts. There will be cultural integration that will be needed. We have to move here.
It has to be built into the DNA from the start.
That's very important.
So where is all the money going, Jishnu, at this point in time?
So we are doing we are funding, as I was saying, that we are equally funding Digital India as well as enterprise software. We are super excited in both, because we just feel that every decade is a new opportunity in technology. If you look at technology waves have been changing 10, 15 years. We are, I think, because of, and thanks to the AI wave, I give it to what extent AI becomes a regular budget item in every enterprises or not, world will see. But it has given rise to tremendous enthusiasm, tremendous innovation. So that's, I would say, on the technology side. And in the real economy, digitization side in India, it's unbelievable, right? When I started investing, probably the entire e-commerce market was few hundred million. That is probably 100 billion plus today. In a span of 16 years, we are probably the most digitized country in terms of number of transactions that's happening
on UPI,
digitally, right? So and we are seeing it. It's only accelerating. Very, very exciting decade, I would say.
Well, exciting decade, but going back to the point that Abhinav made about bad funding in a way, and we've probably seen a lot of the excesses of the kind of capital that was thrown at startups, and a lot of that has fortunately been sort of
That has been,
cleaned up.
I'm hoping that it has gotten, I can't say it is totally gotten flushed out, but actually good things are happening. I mean, a lot of companies gotten funded, they shouldn't have gotten funded, a lot of valuations were created, which should not have been that, right? I think it's also a function of, see, every cycle goes through, and the previous cycle actually historically lasted a lot longer, hype cycle, I mean the boom cycle, versus the previous ones. So those are the ramifications. But I feel that, things are getting normalized.
Yeah, and the focus much more on cash flow and profitability. I mean, that,
I would say that was the 2023 year. Things are coming back. I think that's what happens when one extreme is reached, then people just overcorrect, and then it says that, yes, cash flow is good, but you can't also, you have to invest, you have to look for growth. And those things are coming back, actually.
I think the same goes for companies as well. I feel like while at this point people might be a bit pessimistic that, this company burned so much money, but I think that should not dissuade investors and entrepreneurs from taking risks. I think the other factor of the valley is that, you go for really like big moonshot things. And when you are very conservative in your thinking, you can, actually not achieve the goal that you want. So for us and for some of the best companies out there, they continue to invest in future growth opportunities. If you dial it back down to like, hey, I'm just going to sit this one out. Like if companies were sitting, around for the last year or they were not hiring, I think they're on the back foot already. So I think that mentality has to be balanced.
Correct. I would say caution is good, but you cannot operate from a position of fear. And unless you are investing in that,
you can't operate from a position of just wanting to survive.
Exactly. Then survival might be at stake. That's how it happens. You have to. That's what strive for, work towards thriving, but be responsible in your actions.
So what's the moonshot opportunity, and how do you balance the need to take the big risk, to make the big bets, and yet ensure that you're doing it the right way with an eye on profitability eventually?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest bets for us is right now basically, using the power of AI and no code to bring programming to like 100 million developers. We're combining essentially the ability to have all of the world's APIs on Postman being available to somebody who has not really programmed before. It's a new product we've been working on. We invested on this about 2.5 years ago. And the way we do it is really we look at a small team that has the characteristics of a startup, kind of like how we were. And we have successive cycles of product iteration where the product just becomes bigger and bigger over time. And at some point in time, we just pour gas on it, So it's like
and set it on fire.
Not burn money type gas, But it's more you're putting it in the engine and not on the product, So I think we have much more mature as a company with a engineering engine, a go-to-market engine.
Right.
We have the ability to bring a product to millions of developers really instantly. So we are using that as the fuel. And what I'm very excited about is AI can really accelerate all of this. What we were very excited about, along with the fact that so many developers were using Postman, was that big part of our community was people who were customer support specialists, sales engineers, people who did not write professional code, and they could see so much value in Postman, and now we have the ability to get them to do even more. I think Jensen Wang, our patron saint of AI, has talked about.
He's the patron saint of AI. I like that.
Right now,
he is.
Everyone is going to be a programmer, but they're not going to program in code. They're going to program in language. And I think we hope that Postman is the place where all of that happens.
So where does this leave human beings? What role are human beings going to play in all of this as we enter this AI decade, AI century, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, hopefully flights on time. All the world goodness.
So as you said in your blog, they're going to be responsible for debugging and verification. Is it that's what the human beings are going to do?
Yes, they need to. I think humans still play a very important role in creating a trusted world, right? Like the conversation we are having. You trust the opinion of people to really make sense of reality. I don't think that part of humanity will go away. And actually, we had Trevor Noah at our conference. And he
from the patron saint of AI to the patron saint of comedy, we have it all.
So he had said this very interesting thing, right? Like you can write a joke through AI, but when you come to the
Yeah,
show, you
yeah.
know, how
You
does
go
it
to-
feel?
yeah, yeah.
So, you know, it was
Yes.
fascinating.
Phew. I'm hoping to keep my job as well for now. Yeah, but there are some things hopefully AI can't do just yet. But we wish you the very best of luck. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on Voices from the Valley, and look forward to seeing you take that moonshot and play out that moonshot. Jishnu, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us as well, and thanks for giving us a reality check on where things currently stand on the AI trail, but appreciate your time. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Voices from the Valley. From all of us here on the team, for now, goodbye and many thanks for watching.